What's going on, y'all? Welcome to episode 60 of the Half Priced Concessions Podcast as we sit down with Ace Speedway racer Jamie Orange. Before we get to Jamie, I want to give a big thank you to all of our partners that help make the podcast possible. Our friends at North Carolina 811 that remind you to know what's below. Dial 811 before you do any kind of digging. Performance Center Racing Warehouse. Also our friends at Accelerated Graphics and Montgomery Performance Consulting, helping make the podcast what it is. Jamie Orange has been an Ace Speedway racer for a couple of different periods. In the early 2000s, he was in the Xtreme division, or kind of what Ace Speedway calls like its U-Car division. Then, in recent years, he's moved over to the mini stocks. But it was a pretty cool story because it's important to remember that when you're going to a racetrack, it's easy to get caught up in the premier division of what's racing. You know, the modifieds, the late models. You know, those guys are the guys with the big, more expensive cars that go faster and stuff. But everybody in the pits has a story. And everybody in the pits that's driving, working on a car, everybody there has that same passion for racing that the big guys do. It's just the car might not be as big or be as flashy or be as pretty looking, but make no mistake, they love racing just as much and in some cases even more. So pretty cool story to sit down and chat with Jamie, and we even got to listen to his dad a little bit. So sit back and enjoy this episode 60 of the Half Price Concessions Podcast with Jamie Orange is coming up on the other side of these messages.
When you're eating breakfast, you don't think twice about hitting an electric line in your cereal. If you're looking through your dresser, does damaging a fiber optic line cross your mind? Of course not, because those utilities are buried underground. So don't think twice about calling 811 before digging. 811 is a free service, takes as little as 5 minutes, protects you and your neighborhood, and it's the law. So call or click 811 today. This safety message brought to you by North Carolina 811.
This episode of the Half Price Concessions Podcast is brought to you with support from Performance Center Racing Warehouse. In addition to being the home of the PRW chassis, Performance Center offers in-house setups and consulting, plus suspension and chassis pull-down analysis, along with their fabrication shop that can reclip your race car with the fastest turnaround in the industry. Give Roger Johnson and the Performance Center team the chance to earn your racing business by calling them today at 704-838-1400 or visit them online at performancecenter.com. That's PERFORMANCENTER.com.
Hey podcast listeners, I'm Keith Montgomery of Montgomery Performance Consulting, and I want to help speed up your racing program. Whether you're racing dirt, asphalt, or road course, put my years of experience to work for you. Our pull-down services will help find where you're giving up speed so you can unload faster and run up front. We also offer trackside consulting and data testing to help you find speed and balance. And with our central location in Burlington, North Carolina, you can come to us for discounted rates on pull-down sessions. Call me today at 336-382-1835. Like us on Facebook at Montgomery Performance Consulting, and let us help your racing program today.
The Half Price Concessions Podcast is brought to you in part by our friends at Accelerated Graphics. Whether you need a wrap for your race car, signs for your business, banners for your special occasion, decals, apparel, or anything else, you need to call Jason Turner at Accelerated Graphics. Call him at 336-266-5653. Visit him online at www.worth2tenths.com. You can also find him on Facebook by searching for Accelerated Graphics. Anything you need to give your racing career, your personal business, or anything you need a nice, clean, professional, exciting look, call Accelerated Graphics today. It's good to have you on, man. I've got a lot I want to learn about you because I don't really know that much about you. I've heard your name for a lot of years, especially over at Ace Speedway and stuff, what we have in common. But first things first, we were talking about a little bit before we turned the mics on about your racing this year. You hadn't got to race as much because you got tore up opening night at Ace Speedway, but you think you're gonna be able to get it fixed and get back out there sometime soon?
It's gonna be soon, better than late. should be in the next week or two, and we're working hard. Between me, my dad, and some of our friends and everything, we're working hard to get back to the racetrack. We really miss it, and we want to be there as bad as the next person, and we're working really hard to get there.
How long have you been racing, Jamie?
I've been racing off and on for 20 years.
Wow. And how old are you?
I am 38.
Okay, we're not too far apart. Yeah, because I'll be 33 this year, so we're not too far apart in age.
Yeah.
So you got started pretty young, huh?
Yeah, I was 18 when I got started.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
You're not like these kids nowadays that get started at 5.
Right.
You
right.
had to wait till you could afford it. I guess, right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So tell me what even got you into it in the first place? What made you want to go out there and
Well, my father raced at 3 different racetracks between 1970 and 77. He run at Franklin County. He ran at Whitfield and the old Starkey Speedway in Roanoke, Virginia. And I wasn't around when he was racing, but when I come along in 1982, and the older I got, he started taking me to the races. And hearing his war stories and pictures and just going to the races as a kid, I was hooked.
Yeah.
And I started loving it, and I wanted to someday be a part of it, somehow, some way. And then, that was about it.
Who was some of those guys that you were watching back in those days? You remember some of those names? I love to hear those names.
Well,
and whatnot.
or
was it kind of a blur?
Well, one of my heroes back then, I was a Busch Grand National guy, Tommy Ellis.
Yep, terrible Tommy Ellis.
Tommy Ellis, when he was in the Goo Goo cluster car, 89 and 90. And, of course, running on Saturday nights at South Boston, Orange County, we used to keep up with him when he would go like to Charlotte and Rockingham and Bristol.
Did you ever get to meet him or get an autograph? Yeah.
I did. I was about 6 years old when I met him the first time, and everybody says, he had a bad attitude. No, to me, he had a good attitude. He hugged me the night that he won the race at South Boston.
Oh, man.
And autographed a hat for me. And I seen him about 3 years ago, and we talked to him probably about 2 or 3 hours at a car show in Raleigh.
You don't sound so terrible after all. I don't know where that nickname came from.
Well, he was just he was one of those characters on the racetrack that he didn't take no junk off of nobody, and he raced hard, and he was just one of them people that you look towards and everything. And Dale Earnhardt comes to mind. He was another hero of mine, and so. But as far as the grassroots around here and everything, Barry Beggarly comes to mind. He was one of the few, as far as late model. So yes, them people I kept my eyes on.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do it.
I was about to say, you sitting there watching it, you're a fan of it.
Oh, yes.
You're getting older, you're understanding it.
Yes, sir.
And then what pushes you over the hump to finally go out and find yourself a car and get involved in some way? What's the turning point here?
Well, I got to be about 15, 16 years old, and I had played a lot of baseball and basketball growing up. And I come to my father one day, and I told him, I said, look, I don't want to play baseball and basketball no more. I want to race. And I was going to school at the time, and I had a friend, and we ended up being frenemies, by the name of Charlie Payne.
Okay.
He come to me, he had found out that they were starting the Xtreme class. Of course, it's the cheapest class you could start out in. He come to me, he said, they're starting a class. And so I said something to my father, and him and a friend of ours, Marvin Oliver. I helped Marvin Oliver on a late model car.
I remember old Marvin Oliver.
I was 15, 16 years old, and my father would ask me, he said, what do you want to do after we go eat and everything? I want to go to the shop where his race car was at and see what was going on, and try to learn something. If not, one thing you can learn is better than nothing. Well, I started helping a little bit. I'd go to the racetrack on Friday night. I wasn't one of them that I went with the high school crowd and everything on a Friday night. I wanted to go to the racetrack.
Yeah, they wanted to ride around and pick up chicks and party and stuff.
And I wanted to go to the racetrack.
Yeah, you wanted to go race.
I wanted to be around race cars. Well, I started helping him at the racetrack also. And, I would go get tires. I would fill up his water bottle for him if it was like a 7,500 lap race. And just do the odds and ends stuff. And I learned stuff there. And once I started wanting to become involved more as far as driving, he helped me get started. We got a car that it was a 4-door Volkswagen Fox.
I was just about to ask what kind of 4-cylinder front-wheel drive you went with.
That's what I started out in.
Because you had a lot of options. It seemed like there was like 8 different kinds of cars out there.
I started out in a Volkswagen Fox, a 1988 Volkswagen Fox. And I'll tell you a quick story about that. We got it for nothing. And at the time, we didn't have nothing to transport it back to here.
Didn't have a trailer or nothing.
Nothing at the time. Well, my father, we get the bright idea to drive it from Spring Garden Street in Greensboro to the house. Well, first off, it didn't have no license tag.
There's strike one.
Second of all, it didn't have an inspection sticker.
Strike two.
Well, we made it all the way through Greensboro, and we got all the way over here to the post office in McLeansville, and there happens to be the blue light special.
Oh, he's right there waiting.
He's right there waiting. Well, I'm driving my daddy's truck, and next thing I know, I look up in the rearview mirror and I see blue lights. Well, I thought I was speeding. Well, I wasn't speeding. He come around me and he pulled my daddy over. My race car, my future race car that I was going to start out in,
is about to get ticketed.
Well, the good thing about it was we didn't get ticketed.
What'd you get out of? Would you use your looks?
No. My father talked his way out of it. The guy said, look, leave it right here. Well, we went and we found somebody that we knew, and he put a chain around it and put it on his truck and everything, and we towed it in here. Well, we started building the car and everything. Roll cage, bone stock. I mean, really bone stock. And I went out there and I ran 8 races with it. And come near starting off not on a good note. I got turned around the first night I went out, and it could have been a lot worse than what it was. I was just able to hold on to it, and finished my first night out. And
were you officially bit by the bug then? Did you have that?
I was bit by the bug. I was bit by the bug day one. From day one, going to the races and everything. I was bit by the bug getting in the car. Period. And then the next time we come back and raced, it wasn't really good. I ended up in the ambulance.
Oh no! What happened?
I got hit in the behind the driver's side door by Chad Sykes.
Okay.
This is when he was running Xtreme, and the thing about it is, I don't like to talk about people, but Johnny Fogelman was up in the flag stand. And he was taking his flags and beating them like he was playing drums.
Yeah.
I felt like he might have felt like he was bored or something. I don't know. But didn't throw a caution.
So you
I got hit
and
I
no
got
caution.
hit. No caution.
Okay.
I got hit. Well, you know, you stretch your neck. Well, I stretched mine. Had big zeros in between my kneecaps right here. And they put me in the ambulance and checked me out and everything. And but the thing was, I told Daddy, I said, I'm not done.
No.
I'm not done.
You're just beginning.
Just beginning. We brought the car home. Between me and him, we probably worked, I know we worked 36 hours in 2 days.
Good God.
To put it back together.
I mean, how bad was it? Was it everything but the frame? How bad was it?
The axle on the back. It was just a lot of work to be done and everything. And we worked Saturday morning, Saturday night, got up the next morning and worked Sunday. We were working. We got done working Sunday, and we get a phone call. My grandmother had passed away.
Oh, no.
We went and took care of that. We buried her on a Wednesday. We come back in here. We loaded the car up on Wednesday afternoon. We went and practiced. In other words, we kept digging. Went down there and practiced. I went down there to Friday night. I finished the best I ever finished in that car.
Oh, wow.
6. And then we just finished out the rest of the year in that car. And come 2002, we I know you probably seen Leanne Welburn.
Yep.
My father worked with her father for years at Black Cadillac in Greensboro. And that car come for sale. And my father and my uncle went in together and bought that car for me for my graduation present for graduating high school. So I started out 02 in that car, and I should have won the first race I ever set in the car.
It was that good.
It was that good. I just messed up. I jumped the restart on one of the last restarts, and Mr. Fogelman threw the black flag at me.
Yeah, he was good at that.
He was. He was.
What was harder for you? Was learning how to drive harder, or learning how to actually work on the car and make what adjustments you could? 'Cause I'm sure 4-cylinder front wheel drive, there's only so much you can adjust. It's not like a late model or something like that. So what was harder for you?
For me, it was the driving part.
Okay.
Because, I wasn't experienced like I am now. I'm, 20 years later, the experience.
You're pretty green getting out there.
Right. I look at it as I had a fast car, but I didn't have the experience.
I'll tell you one for me, and I've only gotten out there twice. I got in Harold Jefferson's car for one race, and for me, I had to get reminded to breathe. I had never driven anything competitive, right. And when you sit in the stands, them Xtremes, they don't look they're not as fast as a late model or modified, but when you're in the seat and you're finally going that fast and you got people around you, it's weird. You don't even remember to breathe. I'm sure right. I'm sure you went through some similar things just learning.
You do, and it's part of the learning process. And but I learned from it. I come back to the next week we raced. I started third that night, and probably by the third lap, I had to lead. And what was so good about that was no cautions. And we won the race. We won the race that night. And it took me 10 starts before I won my first race. But I should have won the first night that I ever sat in that car.
How good did that feel to finally get that win?
Well, you know,
nothing like the first win.
Well, let me tell you something. I don't care what you do. You can't never forget your first time on anything. And, you know, it did a lot for me because I had loved this sport ever since I was a kid. And, you know, to do something that I always wanted to do, you know, it was during my senior year of high school. That put the icing on the cake as far as a senior year in high school, because I had gone through school and I talked about driving a race car, and I wanted to drive a race car. That's all I ever wanted to do.
Yeah.
Was racing. I had the passion for it, had the desire for it. I've had people say, "Is that all you think about?" Pretty much.
Yeah, it's hard to. I think it's probably the hardest thing to try to explain to somebody
Right.
that hasn't experienced it.
Right.
I remember Brad Allen told me when I was going to go out there and run the first race I ran, and I had a lot of anxiety. It wasn't my car, you know. Am I going to go out there and tear it up and get hurt? Mm-hmm. And I remember he kept telling me, he said, "I want you to feel what it feels like to fall off in turn one with the crowd beside you." And after I did, I can really attest to what you're talking about.
Yes, sir.
There's no drug that gives you that high. Even if you're not the big, expensive, going 140 into turn one class, there's no rush like it.
No, sir. It ain't nothing like it. And, it's like I tell people all the time, until you've done it, don't tell me, that what to do as far as driving.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy to come out of the stands or sit in the stands and tell somebody how to drive.
Yeah, when you're out there, it's a lot different. Who are some of the people you were having to run against and try to beat on a Friday night basis today? So I think I remember a few of them because that was about the time when the class got started, but the names kind of get a little bit.
Well, Jason Cook.
Yep, I remember Jason Cook.
Charlie Payne. Mm-hmm. Bradley Hayes started out in that class. Chad Sykes. I ran against Scotty Warren some in that class. He started out in that class before he moved on. Harold Jefferson.
Yep, I remember Harold.
Keith Brame Jr. David Small. There were some of the guys and everything. Todd Clark.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think wasn't that back when they had a $500 claim rule back when they started that class?
They did.
You can't get them for that nowadays.
No, you can't. No, you can't. No, you can't. No, you can't.
It is unreal
Yes,
how
sir.
expensive they've gotten.
It has. It has.
So did you only run Ace, or did you get to run other places?
Matter of fact, we ran Ace from started out in 2001, 02, 03, 04, and 05. And then I told my father, I said, I want to do something. And I said, we got to the point where we was running good and everything. My daddy always told me, he said, you stick with one track until you get to running good and winning. And I went by that. And I was one of them that wanted to race, Friday and Saturday night. And if they had somewhere to run on Sunday, I wanted to run there too.
Yeah. But
you can't do but so much with the money that you got. 2005, we went to Franklin County, which my father raced there back in the 70s. That place had a special meaning to me because that's where he raced at. And we went up there the first night. We should have won the first time we went up there. We had Rocker Arms come off. First race that we run. They run twin 25s. And then the bead on the end of the throttle cable come off. and I was like running 5 mile an hour down in the corner and everything, trying to stay out of everybody's way. Well, we got all that fixed. We come back the next time we ran at Franklin County. We were leading the first race with 10 to go and got spun out. And got slid down into the wall. We didn't hit the wall or nothing. I kept the car off the wall, but it you could tell by the tires and everything. I come in, and of course, when you've run that good, I come back to third. And finished third in that race, that first race. I come in, and Daddy hugged me, and he told me, he said, if you drive that race car the way you drive it, he said, I don't mind working on it.
Yeah.
And that really meant a lot to me, and I told him right then and there, I said, come, you know what? I said, I'm going to win this second race. Well, I went out there and I won it.
Nice.
Went out there and won it. And you could tell that he was, because we rode back from Franklin County, and he wasn't saying a whole lot. He was enjoying every minute of it.
Just soaking it in.
He was just soaking it in, because he loved that place, and I loved it. You know, when I started going up there and seeing it, I said, "This is a racetrack."
It's high banked. It's fast. I mean, what's not to love?
It's a racetrack. It's an awesome racetrack. I mean, it's just, and I've said something to Langley about paving it and seeing what it would be like. It would be fast. But that was probably one of the biggest wins that I've ever had. Then we moved into 06. We won 3 races at Ace. And then in 07, we moved up to mini stock. And we ran 07, 08 in mini stock.
What'd you go with in the mini stock? Did you buy a car off of somebody? Or
I bought a car off of somebody by the name of, what is his name? Can't even remember now. But I bought a Mustang. And got started in that. We went and rented a track, and ended up blowing the engine.
Oh, right off the bat.
Right off the bat.
Dang.
Well, we were behind to start the 07 season. Of course, we was going to run for Rookie of the Year. And we got the engine built. We went out there, and we took nothing and really we run decent. And we was fighting for the Rookie of the Year. We come from like 100 or 200 points down to within 14 of winning the Rookie of the Year. And we were right there as far as winning it, and we put the pressure on the guy that was ahead of us. Well, he ends up causing a big wreck, causing me to wreck.
Yeah.
And that didn't go over too well. And so we lost it by 14 points. We had some good finishes and everything.
Was that a learning curve for you, coming from that Xtreme where it's front wheel drive to the mini stock where it's rear wheel drive? Was that a big learning curve for you?
It was a learning curve, but at the same time, I took it all in stride, and I tried to learn as much as I possibly could. And you know, it took some time getting used to it, but I felt like that I adapted really quick. I just didn't have the equipment that everybody else had. Yeah. But I had to learn. You know, it was a different class. Yeah. I mean, there's people that's been running those cars for a long time, and you know, when you look at who all has been successful in them cars, you know, over the years, I mean, that's who I was racing against.
Yeah, a lot of guys like your AJ Sanders, your Michael Tuckers, your Chuck Walls, that's the class they can afford.
Yes.
And they run it enough where they perfect it.
Yes.
And here you come along,
yes,
just trying to get your feet wet.
Yes. more or less. And I looked at it as, of course, like I said, a learning curve, and I learned real fast that I went from being, a top contender in the Xtreme to being, from probably fifth on down.
Yeah, you were mid-pack.
Mid-pack. And it took some use to getting used to, but at the same time, it was a learning curve. And
Still just racing at Ace?
Still racing at Ace. It's like I said, we stuck to one racetrack. We wasn't moving around, because I feel like if you ain't competitive at one track, then why go to another track and try to, race? And you take a chance of getting your car tore up at Ace. But if you go to somewhere else, it's traveling time and it's money there. But you try to stick with one racetrack. And with that car, we stuck with one racetrack. So that's about it, as far as that. But then in 2008, we was about the same. From fifth on back, and it was tough. And then after 2008, we ran out of money, and we went through a time where we didn't have the money, the means to race. So I went probably 9-10 years without racing.
What was that? I bet that was an adjustment, man. You're so used to Friday night.
Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
I will tell you right here, right now. And people don't realize it until they do it. I was miserable.
Yeah.
I was miserable. My father was miserable. Because you do something that you absolutely love, and you don't get to go do it. It's like a kid looking outside at other kids playing, and they can't go outside. Well, to me, taking away racing away from me was like a kid being punished, and it was just hard. I mean, I went to the races on Friday night. I went to the races on Saturday night. It just wasn't the same. I mean, and then I went through those times and everything, and then come 2018, about June 2018, I had the opportunity to buy another car. And the car is sitting in the garage now. The one that we got caught up in a wreck. I've had it since 2018, June of 2018. And the best we finished with that one was 6. We just ain't had no luck.
Yeah.
And my daddy's worked his butt off on the car, and I can't say nothing bad as far as the dedication and the determination that my father's had in my racing.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure a lot of stuff changed over those 10 years. I mean, even I think any class of cars over that period of time, just things advance, things get more expensive.
Oh, yes.
It's like a night and day difference.
It is. But I got back into it, and it was adjustment getting back into it again. And it's like I tell people all the time, when you're out of something for a while, it's hard to get back into it. And but I was happy to be back, and I wasn't. Don't get me wrong. I knew it was going to take a while, but at the same time, I knew I could do it. I've always had the confidence in myself that I could do it. I just needed the right opportunity to come along, and that's what we're working toward.
I'm about to say. Well, I'm glad you got back into it. A lot of people get out of it and they don't come back. You stay out of it long enough, it's almost like you get numb to it, or you're just like, well, I've already done that. Let me try something different.
But I look at it as, this is to me is like going on vacation to some people, or this is my hobby. This is what I love.
Yeah.
You know, I don't go on many vacations. I don't.
You probably don't bowl or fish much either, do you?
I do a little bit. I've done a little bit of fishing, but I don't do it as much as I used to as a kid. I bowled some, but I don't bowl a lot. Racing has been my thing. I mean, it's been what I've wanted to do.
Yeah. So when you got to coming back with that mini stock, I know you said you had to kind of get readjusted, but how big was that smile on your face to get back out there and feel the G-forces and just feel it to get back out there? I'm sure it probably came back like a kid riding a bicycle.
Well, it came back as a kid riding a bicycle, yes. Smile, it light up the world. I felt like that, you know, I was back doing what I wanted to do, and don't get me wrong, it's been a lot of hardships and everything over it, but at the same time, I've enjoyed every minute of it. People ask me, they said, why do you do this? Well, I could ask them the same questions about things also. So, what they do. But at the same time, I've enjoyed every minute of it.
It's pretty cool. You got to. I still can't. I keep thinking in my head about how cool it was for you to go and win a race at Franklin County. You know, like because your dad had raced there and whatnot. And I got to be honest, I don't think the track has changed since. It was probably the exact same track, a little more wear and tear, but the facility hadn't changed much. The tower, I don't think, changed much. So it was probably pretty. If they took a picture of both times, it probably don't look a lot
Yes,
different.
sir. Yes, sir. I mean, I don't look at that. I look at what the track was.
Yeah.
And it was a racetrack. When I come in, the first time that I ever practiced on the track, I come in and I looked at my daddy. I had a big old smile on my face. I said, this is a racetrack. I said, you can run that car down in the corner and it will hold you. It will hold you. And to me, I told him, I said, I consider this place, it reminds me of Bristol. And I ain't never run at Bristol. But it reminds me the shape and everything and the banking and everything of Bristol. And that's what it reminded me of. And I told him, I said, I call it Little Bristol. To me, it did. I mean, some other people probably say something different. But that's what I look at it as.
Yeah. Is there anywhere that you went and watched where you're just sitting there like, man, it'd be nice to get out there and give it a shot?
It ain't but one place for me.
Yeah.
That'd be South Boston.
Okay. No Orange County, no Caraway, none of those? South Boston.
I like Orange County because I went down there as a kid, growing up. The Busch Series ran down there. The late model run down there when it was at its best. And but South Boston to me is where I've always wanted to run something.
It's pretty top-notch place.
Yes, sir. And a dream of mine was to run late model at South Boston.
Yeah.
Because of my time there watching and as a kid growing up and when I got older.
Did you ever have the itch to go over to the old quarter mile in Winston-Salem, Bowman Gray?
I did it one time.
Yeah.
I don't know more. Because I feel like that I've gotten older and I realize that the time, the money, and putting a car back together from over there. Don't get me wrong, I'm not scared of it.
Yeah.
It's just I more or less would stick to Ace and South Boston.
Yeah.
And Franklin County. Them are my 3 tracks. I'm 15 minutes from Ace. I run that track because it's closer to me. I love South Boston because that's always been a part of my life, going to the races and everything at South Boston. Franklin County, because that's where my father raced at, and I've had success there.
Yeah.
But them are the 3 tracks.
Yeah.
And I would throw Orange County in there. I mean, because I went down there as a kid, and you know, if I had the opportunity, I'd run down there too. I mean, so.
You got to give me a story from in the pits at Ace Speedway, because I'm sure with all that success you had during that first run with the Xtreme car, I'm sure you had to have a few run-ins or a few things happen down in the infield. So can you give me one?
I've had my share of run-ins. I had I had some rivalries. Me and Larry Isley Jr. had a rivalry.
Of course, you picked the biggest guy.
It didn't matter.
Okay.
I look at him as he ain't nothing but a big old teddy bear. When I had to Dodge and everything, we had a rivalry that first year he started racing too, and he would talk junk to me. I talk junk back to him. One night, me and him got into it on the racetrack, and I messed up his tire and everything. And his daddy, at the time, told him, he said, "I want you to find that orange kid," he said, "and tell him to buy us a new tire." Well, we were gonna get a tire and everything, and when he come in the pit area, we was gonna roll it out in front of him and say, "Here's your tire."
Yeah.
Well, we never did, but it was something that we thought about doing. I had my run-ins with Charlie Payne.
Oh, okay.
And me and him like to bumper car one another, beat and bang on one another.
Oof.
And that, him and his daddy and my daddy would look at each other like, really? We got to put up with these two?
Yeah, these two knuckleheads are out here
beating
the snot out of each other.
Yeah, right. And then I had a little bit of a rivalry with Keith Brame Jr.
Yeah.
He didn't like how I raced. Because I was one of them that I raced hard from the time the green to the time the checker flag, and he didn't like my style of racing.
Wasn't no laying back with you.
No, sir.
You only had what, like, what was it, 15, 20 laps?
Yeah.
It wasn't a long time to
Yeah.
go.
And then I ended up getting into it with one of the Jones boys.
Uh-oh.
I got into him, and he come over and confronted me after the race and everything, and he didn't like how I did and everything as far as what I done, but I'm not going to go into detail of what I told him. And other than that, I really haven't had that much. You know, I've always tried to race everybody clean, you know, but at the same time, you know, it's hard not to touch people.
Yeah, you
on a short track.
You got to be aggressive to win.
Right. You got to know when to be aggressive too, and that's easier said than done. So, not that many. Just those few in the Xtreme.
Yeah. Well, anybody you want to give a thanks to or a shout out before we close this thing on out?
I would like to thank my sponsors that have come on board this year when we do get back started. Hellraiser Jacks, Elite Gutters, All About You Realty, Kelly's Stump Grinding, CL Summers and Son Trucking and Grading, Griffin Graphics. And I'd like to thank my father for all the work that he does, and my girlfriend for supporting me also. And I appreciate what Jason and Robert has done for our racetrack.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure, brother. I look forward to finally seeing you get back out there. That'll be a sight. I have to come out and watch you on a Friday night whenever you get that thing fixed.
Tyler, I appreciate you coming and interviewing me and everything.
So, a little bit of postscript, mid-script update, if you will. At this point in the episode, we had finished up with Jamie. I'd hit the stop button on the recorder, and I was pretty satisfied with it. And I'm telling y'all, as soon as I did, Jamie's dad, Steve, piped up and was wanting to share some stories, and we were just shooting the breeze a little bit. And I could just, you have to feel the temperature in the room. I could hear the passion in his voice. I could see that look in his eye. And he got about halfway through a story, and I kind of threw up the stop sign, and I was just like, Mr. Orange, would you mind if I just come sit next to you and hold the recorder out here so that we can record this and share this, these stories? And thankfully he said yes. So I went over, sat next to him, and here's what Jamie's dad, Mr. Steve Orange, had to say to us. All right, Steve. So I have to hit record on this story. So you're telling me about, Jamie told us all about your racing at Franklin County. Lead me back into this story you were just about to share.
Okay, we was running a car up there back in the 70 to 77, and we went up there one year. I don't know what year it was, but Ray Hendricks was running up there every once in a while. Well, I didn't get off work until 5 o'clock at Black Cadillac out of Greensboro, and had to go up there. And I got up there, and the traffic was lined up all the way down to the first bridge. And I got out of the car. My wife drove the car. She was with me, and I told her, I said, let me out of the car. I said, and I'll walk in there, and you just drive the car on in there. So that's what I did. I got out and walked in because I had to get there to practice. So I got out of the car and walked on in there and everything, and then she come on in with the car, and but let me tell you something. Everybody ran up there. Tommy Houston, L.D. Onger, Harry Gant, you name them, Darrell Walter, all of them had been up there, and I guarantee you, if you asked them what they think about that racetrack,
Very special place in your heart, ain't it?
hate it.
That's okay. There's nothing wrong with getting emotional. This is the good stuff.
But you're right in the moonshine capital of the world, and then you got some of the best racing that you'll see anywhere. But I've seen about everybody that you can think of that has drove a race car, from Curtis Turner on up. And I know a race car driver when I see him. That's just like Jimmy Mullins.
Yep.
Let me tell you something. Go right over there and look in that trophy case right over there. We got a picture where we were with him at Martinsville. He can drive a race car. But like, getting back to the racetrack itself, I was there when they run on dirt, and then they didn't run but maybe 5 races in 69, and then 70 they run a full season, and I started racing up there. I was 19 years old, and I started racing up there then, and so I was there from the get-go, and it is a special place to me. This might sound crazy to some people, but I went up there last year and took that recliner right there with me and spent the night up there on the back of my truck. They ran Saturday night and run Sunday, and so I just stayed up there and slept in that recliner right there on the back of my truck. but Seth Swirly comes to mind. Paul Rafford.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about Paul Rafford.
Let me tell you something. Joe Thurman. I seen Joe Thurman and Lawrence Paul roll in over there with a brand new car, and they gave him 5 laps of practice because they got there late, and they gave him 5 laps of practice. Started on the rear of the field and won the race that night.
Wow.
And he hit the wall. It sounded like a shotgun went off. He hit the wall on the back stretch and never cracked the throttle. That's just like I told the preacher, and I need to say this. I've seen all of these guys in their prime of life. And now when we go to the drivers' reunion up at Danville, they all hadn't bowed that head because they've run their race. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, I could sit here and talk to you in the morning. That's just like Monk Tate. Very, in other words, he taught me one thing, and that is the hard work. That man would race on Friday night and come in at daybreak and go straight into the battlefield and working at the battlefield until a certain time and then go race at nighttime. I mean, at the Saturday night. Never ending.
Let me ask you this. Well, I heard what Jamie said about how much it meant to him to win at Franklin County. With your love for that track and just how much you've seen, how special was it for you to see your boy take that checker flag? I don't mean to send you in a tailspin and make you cry, but I can't leave here without asking you how special that was for you to watch him.
David Pearson said something one time. He says that his kids could do anything and it would be better than what he ever did. And that's the same way with him. Everything he's ever done has been multiplied to me. I've enjoyed it more. And he said something. I told him up Franklin County that night because the car broke, but he was doing his job, and I told him, I said, as long as you drive that car like that, Jamie, I said, you ain't got to worry about me working on it, and believe me, he's worked me to death in the last couple of years, but it's all part of racing. I know people down there say we don't know nothing. I mean, when you have bad luck, that's just like the professor down there. I watch them tapes. We get them tapes and everything, and that's just like the professor said that they broke a crank 2 weeks in a row. Now, how bad of luck is that?
Pretty awful, yeah.
Right. See, that's just like Jamie, the darn steering, where the coupling goes together down there at the steering box broke on him down there. He just had run one of the best races that he run and come on pit road, and when he slowed down, it put so much drag on the wheel that the thing wouldn't turn. And you can't take care of that stuff. I mean, it just happens. Things happen. That's just like carburetor. We had trouble with carburetor, float breaking. Alfred Williams up here said he don't hear of it. You know what I'm saying? And then we've broke 5. I mean, it's just bad luck. Just bad luck.
That's what makes you appreciate it when you do win, because
Amen.
everything had to go right.
Amen. I agree with you 100%. It just makes me want to work harder and try to get the car back down there and everything. But it's just something that me and him enjoys, and can't do it enough. But it's just like sending the thing to the frame machine. It took us forever to get it back because they were so far and they wasn't going to work on that race car and put it before them customers' car.
Yeah, you use that at the bottom of the pecking order.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of. I'm gonna really get emotional.
Hey, you don't have to if you don't want to. It's totally up to you.
I know what he just tried to tell me. I had a handicapped brother. And he loved racing. He'd rather go to the race or work on that race car than eat. My grandmother used to get so mad at us because we'd be out there working on that race car, and she'd say, "Y'all come on and eat, y'all come on and eat." Well, I would go because let me tell you something. I knew how she was.
Yeah.
But my brother would stay out there to the last minute working on that race car, and if he would have been a well person, I think my life would have been a whole lot different. I think we would have been able to do a little bit more. I wasn't really mechanically inclined. He could talk to Hank Thomas. We ran a Hank Thomas chassis, which wasn't nothing but a 57 Chevrolet chassis with his working parts on the front of it. But him and Hank would talk, and my brother could. I mean, it come to him just like that. I mean, he was good when it come to mechanical stuff, and I'm trying to think of a good story to tell you about Franklin, but you said something about having trouble in the pits. Well, we was up there one night, and a friend of ours had got into it with Earl Foley, and jerked the shotgun out. And my brother was crippled. He was in a wheelchair. He was trying to find a place to hide. And but let me tell you something. I've been around this mess for 70 years. I'm 70 years old. My mama told me that she carried me in a blanket. So I've been around it for 70 years, and I've been. Jamie forgot to say something about Hickory a while ago. Hickory, we've seen some good racing up there. We haven't had a chance of going up there racing, but we've seen some good races up there, and I sort of feel like I'm connected to everybody. That's just like Philip Morris. I got to talking to them. I got to talking to one of the guys that worked on the car, and I used to go to Waynesboro back in the 50s. My uncle run, I'll show you the race car in a minute over in the picture, but he run there back in the 50s. And Philip's uncle and daddy run there, and I seen them and didn't realize it, of course. Matter of fact, I tried to get in touch with my aunt and see if she remembers any of them, because she used to take pictures all the time. Matter of fact, when something happens to her, I'm supposed to get the pictures. I don't know whether I will or not, but I told her, I said, I want those pictures, and because she was a picture taker. But that's how I got to racing. Is my uncle raced? That they started racing when they come back from the war in the 40s, and in the 50s we'd go to Waynesboro, like I said, and he rode us around the track in the race car, and the rest is history. I've been attracted to it all my life. I get aggravated sometimes. So much stuff's been going on and everything, Nothing's like it used to be, but I'm still there.
I appreciate you sharing these stories, Mr. Orange. Okay. I really appreciate it. It means a lot.
Well,
Because I like hearing them stories.
I appreciate you coming by and interviewing us and everything.
Thank you for listening to the Half Priced Concessions Podcast. We thank you for listening. We thank our partners, North Carolina 811, Performance Center Racing Warehouse, Accelerated Graphics, and Montgomery Performance Consulting for their support in 2021. And we urge you, if you have the ability, please give these folks the opportunity to earn your business no matter what you're in. If you need graphics done, please call Accelerated Graphics. If your race car is in need of speed, please get a hold of Keith Montgomery and Montgomery Performance Consulting. If you're in the need of a new chassis or a new clip or any kind of needs as far as a late model stock is concerned, please call Performance Center Racing Warehouse. And if you're going to do any kind of digging on your personal property or your commercial property, make sure you dial 811 before you dig or visit nc811.org for more information. On behalf of the Half Price Concessions Podcast, my name is Tyler Williams, saying that I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I hope that you have a blessed one.